Good morning.
Hello. Good morning.
Welcome. Welcome to the first ever breakfast at the virtual BAS live. Thank you for joining us, and thank you all friends of the BAS and members. We're talking to Mika Rottenberg this morning. Hi, Mika.
Hello.
So you're joining us from your studio in Brooklyn.
Actually upstate. So
upstate. That sounds
My
nice.
home is upstate. Yeah.
Oh, okay. I think I visited you in Brooklyn, and that's why I think that you're there. Or did I make that up? Maybe I made that up.
Oh yeah. Well, that was years ago, right? You mean yes. Yeah. I go back and forth. My permanent home and studio are upstate, and the last couple of years I've been back and forth between Brooklyn.
So you're upstate.
Now,
you're upstate right now, and we're in isolation, all of us, and social distancing. Would you like to tell us what you've been up to? Are you working on art, or are you doing domestic chores, or are you homeschooling? What are you doing now?
all of the above. Which is actually not bad. I work very well with distraction and like multitasking. I work in circles, so it's like I need to go do some other things to resolve that thing. So I mean, it's been a lot. The homeschooling is a whole other thing, and I like that it's all kind of mashed up into one environment. I always say that the kitchen table is my favorite place in the studio. So, part of me is it's actually nice to not have so much separation and compartmentalizing of spaces.
Well, that kind of gives me a perfect setup to ask you and go straight to your work, because a lot of your work has these little stories going on. So kind of like the kitchen table in homeschooling, your videos go through a tunnel and come out in a different country and then appear, your characters go here. So it's all this progression of systems and things happening that sound like pretty much what you're doing in isolation. And so can I ask you, are you like a medium, or how you created Cosmic Generator in 2017, which was shown at the show at the BAS, which opened in 2017. And the work is kind of predicts this issue about global capitalism.
Because this was in 2015, it was and as the world kind of progressed or regressed or whatever, it became so clear, like what's the connection between China, Mexico, and the US. So I don't know how that happened. I have to say another strange thing is that I've been developing a piece that will be all filmed remotely out from people's homes before Corona in the last year. So it happened again, but I shouldn't jinx it. I don't know. It's just, I think these things are energetically kind of there. And, I do also believe in energetic kind of, part of this new piece is called Remote, and it's about also remote viewing, which is the ability to, remotely project your site into other places in the world. So I do believe in that kind of energy, but I am not a medium.
Now I'm afraid to see your next work, because you might predict what will happen in 2 years. Very briefly, can you describe Cosmic Generator for those people who are with us who might not have seen it at the BAS?
I think it's hard to describe. I would say schematically, if you think about it as a map, it's kind of a geographical kind of connection collapse and connection between wholesale market in China that primarily deals, or that part of the market deals with small commodities that are then shipped to the entire globe, to a 99-cent store on the California part in Calexico, and to a Chinese restaurant on the other side of the border in Mexico, and it's like a fictional tunnel, and these other kind of psychic connections that kind of hold these three places, this triangle, three places, and there's other things too, but that's the kind of structure. And it's a video that takes you in between these places.
With, also something that is very important to talk about in your work, because we're talking about global economies, we're talking about social issues and political and all of that, but you use so much humor. And I think that's a really great way that you have of pulling people in to these thoughts about more serious issues. Do you want to elaborate on that a little bit?
Yeah, I don't know if it's necessarily humor, but I think there's parts. Oh, of course, my mom calls. She always.
That's the beauty of Zoom talks.
Yeah. Well, sorry. What was this? What were we talking about?
We were talking about absurd and funny and ways of pulling people.
Yeah, humor. I think it's more like these human moments. I think humor, I don't aim for humor necessarily. It's more the insanity that is just make something extreme and then you don't know what to do, so you kind of laugh or smile. But I also think that when you have like this monumental situation and then like someone like sneezes or something happens that's like very human, it's funny. So I think it's these moments of kind of reminding us, we all have a body and we all are kind of in this existence, not sure what's going on out there, and like these kind of creatures like trapped in this, compartments. So I think that becomes, I guess, funny for lack of other notion, perhaps. I don't know. Because some of the things, it's not funny per se, or it's, so that's what I have to say about humor.
Well, yeah, there's like businessmen inside of tacos and things like that.
Right. Yeah.
I really think that's funny. We have to characterize that as funny because you're going through and you're throwing things at the viewer in your videos that just really break the narrative of anything that is very and takes you back in, which, is, I think, terribly funny. There's a term that I saw that you use, social surrealism.
Mm-hmm.
So I think we're probably living in the most social surreal moment in our life. What do you think?
Yes. Yeah, for sure. It's very bizarre times. I'm in a situation because I think my work has always been that kind of everyday mundane and that the kind of like, I want to call it the uncanny or the bizarreness that happens. So it's this moment where reality becomes very familiar to me. The bizarreness is something that is like a logic that I'm familiar with from my work. So we're definitely in a very strange time. We're also in, a crucial time in many aspects. And, one to ask themselves, what's the role of art, or how can art be at least a little bit helpful at this time, or useful? Art being the definition being not a useful commodity in a way. So yeah, I've been thinking a lot about that, how our role, not just as artists, as anyone that has the ability to produce right now, or invest time or energy or whatever into new systems, basically, of new ways of making things and being, which I think is very important in connection to art.
I think these new ways of being are just kind of jolting our existence a little bit and, making us stop, but also making us do things that we're not used to do. So breaking habits a little bit that I think might jolt us a little bit, like your humor, jolt us into kind of new ways of thinking. And all the chores and these homeschooling. And I've been cleaning more than any time in my life. But as you do that, there's a repetition that's a little bit like ritualistic and a little bit like a mantra that'll get us, I think, to think a little more and not act as automatically. Do you think that that's part of what you're going through?
Well, I think we know that our habits need to change, because also the coronavirus is not the only crisis. You know, there's the climate crisis, environmental crisis, ecological collapse, all that, and that's very real, and that's, you know, also connected in a way to the corona crisis, but it's you know, it's another crisis, and we know that the way we operate is our habits aren't sustainable. And this is the time to change, you know, as things are collapsing. What are the ideas that are going to be there that's going to kind of carry through? So not to be, you know, to be optimistic or you know, but also realistic. You know, there's ways that we need to change, and I think this is the time. It's not the new normal. You know, should address that. So.
Well, so far, I don't know if it's changed because I think it's too early to tell, but at the very least, I think our conversations are changing, and we're talking about that, and we're stopping a minute and not being as routine, and we're bringing this into the forefront of our conversations, which is very important. Speaking of climate change,
Mm-hmm.
AC Trio, which the museum is so proud to own, and we will be showing it for quite a long time after we get back into the museum, and its connections to climate change. So AC Trio, we can see a picture of it now, I think. AC Trio, if we can get the technology to do it.
I can describe it.
Get it up. Do you want to talk to us about AC Trio?
Sure. AC Trio is kind of a musical piece, a sound piece, but it's also a sculpture. It's composed of 3 back of air conditioners, the kind of window units that, you know, you see in New York City, all over many parts of the world. Not the most climate friendly. I mean, I think it's outlawed right now. Oh, there it is.
Oh, we got it.
Mm-hmm. And each one is dripping a drip of water into these 3 different instruments, 2 frying pans and a plant, creating a little kind of small ecosystem that's kind of marks time in this way. So, yeah. And
there's a living plant on top in the corner.
Yeah, and one on the bottom. Yeah.
Oh, and one on the bottom, of course. That we work very, very hard to preserve when they're up because they're living.
Yeah, I like the idea of the work actually growing stuff, you know. I mean, in my recent work, more and more, you know, I have a lot more rules in connection to that. But even the idea of the piece in a way, you know, used found elements and grows something. So, you know, it's a mini offset.
And you know, I love the fact that you call it a sound piece. I remember you once telling me that AC Trio had a different name, an original name. Do you want to tell everyone what it was?
I mean, there's the first one that's called, and then.
Oh, okay.
That's what you mean?
Yes.
Yeah, yes. Yeah. I think there's which are just a single AC, and AC Trio is basically, because otherwise it would be 9 times, I think.
Exactly.
And you very. Yeah, but I just imagine you talking about it to someone, and this is.
Yeah, I think that would make it even more difficult, aside from the fact that we take care of the plants every week, and we have a guard that has to stand in front of the hot plate. So if you would add the I think it would just take us over the edge. Right. Definitely.
Well, I like that. It's like exercise.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
So so your new work, your most recent work that was shown at the new museum, Spaghetti
Blockchain.
Tell us about that.
Spaghetti block. I guess in general, it was about our relationship to matter, humans' relationship to materiality and matter. And it kind of maps a few different ways that so part of it is filmed at CERN, at the Large Hadron Collider, kind of looking into what consists of matter, and the empty space that is within matter, which is what's the Higgs particle and all that. I'm a horrible scientist, so don't quote me on the science fact. One is filmed as the kind of robotic potato farm, so kind of looking at this relationship to the earth and a place, where at CERN it's a relationship to a place which we all have, which is what's inside the atom, but then also a relationship to a geographical place or the earth. Another part is filmed in an ASMR kind of factory that I created in my studio. And it's kind of around this fascination with materiality from the most immaterial surface, which is, the phone, like the idea of looking at slime videos and all these super tactile things through a mediated medium, through the screen. So there's that. And then there's throat singing, which is this ancient way of communicating. It was filmed in Siberia. And then there's, I think that I might have forgotten an element, but and a Bitcoin mine somewhere in the world. So again, relation to currency and extraction and energy, and when courtesy becomes an energy. So anyway, these 6 places are kind of combined together through this video that works a lot on your experiencing it, because it's multi-channel sound installation too, and the throat singing is very, kind of enters your body. So it's a little bit about that.
Oh, there we're putting something up. So Mika, what I find really amazing?
That's not it. That's Cosmic Generator.
Yeah, that's Cosmic Generator. Yeah. I asked Julia to put it up, but I think I need to ask you about that first. So what's really interesting, Mika? We started talking maybe 12 or 13 years ago about doing a show. And we had never had a conversation about your work being sound part of your work, which I find amazing, because every time I talk to you, we have another interesting conversation. And I love this notion of sound in your work. And it's something that's coming to mind. And as I think about, because I did see the women, I wish I could be able to act well so that I could show what these women look like. And they're kind of like, la, 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 something like that.
Yeah, it's that throw. It's like a very, very deep. It's like a way to basically vibrate your vocal cords. So
exactly.
Yeah. So it's
Can you do it?
Sound, it's kind of like your being kind of projected, and the way the sound waves, you really feel the sound being kind of a material, somewhere between an energy and a material.
It's really amazing, because when I stood there in front of the work, I had to be there for a long time listening to these women, because they were kind of making me vibrate inside. And then I took a video of it and posted it, because I found it is, sound art in the best possible way. And that brings me to sort of back to a really central theme in your work, which is about women doing things and working and creating systems, and how that's been a thread from the very first video that I saw. What was the first one that you started working with women, basically women in their labor or women in their work, and how that thread all the way to throat singing?
Mm-hmm. I always been interested in labor. I guess I don't know if I can trace. I mean, even like early paintings I see now, and I was like from high school, had like these like chain, like how do you call, gears inside women's bodies, and that and production. So but I think maybe Time and a Half was the first time I actually thought about. I was in grad school. I got into, again, reading Marx and thinking about labor and relation to time and value, and Time and a Half, which was filmed in a Chinese takeout in the East Village, and it was about time also, and the value of time, and dividing one's time and commodifying one's time and one's life, and all that. So I think that was kind of maybe the first work that I consciously thought about that. And it's interesting because the singing is done by Chadora Tumat and her band called Daughters of Tuva, and they're amazing. Talking about being psychic, another thing that happened, that I've been obsessed about them. I've seen videos of that group, Daughter of Tuva, Daughter of Kaizi, which means in a way Daughter of Tuva. I've seen images of them, and it's been very hard to be in touch with them. And they end up being on their 25-year anniversary tour, performing in Brooklyn, very near where I was, as I was trying to reach them in Siberia, in Tuva, and try to find someone that speaks Russian to communicate. And it happened to be that they left Tuva. That's the most remote place that really you could think about. You have to fly to Moscow, and from there another 5 hours, and then another 10-hour trip. And they've been near my apartment. So I was lucky to meet them, but the filming was done remotely. So I never went there. But I was lucky to meet them. Yeah. I worked in collaboration with an amazing Russian crew, really amazing collaboration, a lot of trust. Talking about globalizations, those are the parts of globalization that we should preserve. Being able to collaborate with strangers that I found, online through a friend, and wiring them money to Russia, and getting, footage back, and so much trust and love. And so it was a great experience to work in that way.
That's amazing. Now, do you normally work that way, or a combination of working that way and going physically to a place?
Well, Cosmic Generator was mostly filmed with me there, although there's a few parts that I didn't go. More and more, because of the footprint of my work and the new reality, I've been wanting to work more remotely before Corona, and now Corona. I've been trying to convince, the person I collaborated to film it, and everybody of course wants to go and film because they want to do the best pictures. And so it's hard to sometimes convince people that shooting remotely is great, but now everybody's wrap their heads around that it's possible. So no, it's the first time I purely worked remotely in that way, and it was magical. It was magical. I know things could go bad, and sometimes I could have gotten not the footage I wanted, but yeah.
Well, that sounds like part of the conversations we're having now. What is remote, and what is the footprint that we have when we create work, when we move work, when we show work, produce it, all of those things that I think museums and artists are starting to have in a meaningful way.
Yeah.
I think we were going too fast to really have this conversation in a way that was meaningful, but now we are. In fact, we're at the best, we're talking to an artist who's possibly going to create an exhibition remotely, working with someone on our team.
That's great.
That might actually then later get dispersed in a way that would, disavow the works and just turn into objects or something. We're still trying to figure how that works, but a lot of very interesting creative experiments will be happening, I think, in the days and in the near future. Would you like to open it up for questions?
Sure.
I think that would be interesting. We're getting one question from Amanda Season Keeley. Hi, Amanda. Mika, where does your work usually start, or does it stem off of a previous piece? Is there any new technology you're interested in exploring?
That's a nice question. Well, I guess they usually develop from a previous piece somewhere. Like I feel like when a work is successful for me, there's a little spark of like another thing that kind of it leads me to explore. So I think, but who knows where it starts, really, sometimes it's a moment. Sometimes the ideas I think are like the silliest or the stupidest becomes like the most important to me later on. That's really true. It's something to pay attention to whenever, you know, I could be like walking, or, you know, doing the dishes or something, and suddenly it's like, oh, that would be funny to do this. And then it becomes like this fundamental idea. So, yeah, there's that. And then is there new technology? Well, more about the remote filming. So this part of technology that I would want to explore. For some reason, I'm not interested in, you know, 3D kind of, how do you, I forgot.
AR,
VR, yeah.
AR and AR, yeah.
Yeah, for some reason I'm not, because I like to leave room for reality, for the other forces to interfere in the work. So if everything is kind of created, I feel like it's just me, and I think the work is always in collaboration with you know, the world. So there's something too hermetic about that. Yeah.
So no AR and VR for you. But
Probably not.
this notion of remoteness, I think, is good because it's already sort of has been peeking its head in your work. And I'm really looking forward to seeing that. I have another question from Ernesto Fraga. How do you think this pandemic situation will change the way we do and look at art?
I don't know, but I think that in many ways, first of all, I think the way we work and what is necessary in order to do our work as being, so that's in the production way. And also, where is the content being kind of generated? I mean, what do we really want? Do we want a massive, giant object, you know, to adore, or do we just want to have meaningful conversations and connection and ideas kind of generating? Maybe we don't need like giant objects, you know, because what we crave is really art to spark these conversations and meaningful connections. So in a way, the object is just a vehicle for that. So because now we cannot really interact with objects in the same way, perhaps that will highlight that. So that's what my hope would be, that it would be a little less heavy on the material.
Okay, the question.
Or on the energy.
Thank you, Mika. The questions are coming in on my phone kind of quickly, so I'll move. Our very own Leilani Lynch, our curator class, has a question for you. Thanks, Mika and Silvia. Mika, can you tell us about your drawing practice? Are they connected to your video and sound works, or are they totally separate things?
They're separate, although if you see my sketches, like diagram for my works, they are kind of, they look like the drawing, because the drawings also look like, in a way, flowcharts or diagrams. I mean, very crazy diagrams. So I think there's that, but it's a separate practice. And it's hard for me. I'm good multitasking, you know, on my daily stuff, but when I work on a film, I usually just work on that, and then the drawings are kind of these like vacation in between.
Vacation.
And of course, they're a lot more immediate, and I have my, you know, I do them a lot with my thumb or my finger, my butt sometimes. So they're very much like my own body, which is, you know, absent from the work. The work doesn't have my own body. The drawings have a lot of that and traces, you know, of my own kind of presence.
I love the idea of drawing as vacations. That's a great idea to stay with. I have Daphna Strelitz is asking, Mika, how do you find people to collaborate with, and how can you trust them with your practice if you have not met?
Mm-hmm. Well, how can they trust me? You know, I don't know. I don't know. You know, it's interesting because I also don't really sign that many release forms. I mean, recently, yes, because it's more needed, but there is trust. I think trust is a big part of it. You know, I don't know. it happens, and sometimes things don't go. It just it's not always works well. So it's intuition perhaps too, and I don't know, and then knowing, I think, not to insist. So obviously, I'll never convince someone to be part of it. They have to really want it as much as I want it. So there's that. I don't want to like impose any external thing on collaborations. So
do you do castings, or do you have an idea of the type of person that you would like for your video, or does it happen the other way around?
it happens simultaneously. I don't normally do casting. It's usually a person that fits the part, or the part fits them. It's not for example, when I filmed in You in the market in China, it was the women that own, or usually they work and own. Sometimes it's the same, or they're like, it's a family business and they're the representative because they make all the big sales at the market in China. So it wasn't, they were just perfect because that was their normal space, and I wouldn't cast anyone.
That's wonderful.
Yeah.
So Mika, I want to end not with a question, but with a comment from Jacqueline Cuervo. She says, I grew up on Miami Beach in the 70s and 80s, listening to this sound outside my bedroom window for years. I imagine she's talking about the AC Trio. The nostalgia was overwhelming when I experienced this art. Thank you. So, sorry. So that was a very, very nice question. Yeah. And so, what often happens with really interesting conversations and interesting people is that you start talking about whatever you want to talk about, and you just jump right in, and you don't introduce the person. So I never really properly introduced you. And I'm probably going to give you a very bad introduction, but bear with me. You were born in Buenos Aires and you grew up in Israel, and you now live in New York, upstate New York. And basically you've shown in every single museum in the world, and I can think of, and some that I didn't know existed. So that is kind of the introduction that I want to give. The last museum shows I remember, aside from the Bass, is a new museum. And then the last biennials I remember you being part of was the Istanbul Biennial. And what other biennial was the last one that I remember? Venice Biennial a few years ago. Is there anything you're working towards that we should include in this very vague introduction?
Well, I started working on a collaborative piece with an old friend and old collaborator, and so, but it's still in the early stages. So it's very difficult to do work now and but it does use different models of making, and it's collaborative because I'm very interested in doing collaborations when I work with. I think it's an important time for collaborations. So yeah, but that will probably be done in like a year or something. I think I work very slow. So there's that.
If somebody reads your bio, I don't think they'll think you work slow. But
well,
yeah,
I guess I take a long time for.
But it's certainly, I agree with you, and I think this is the best place to end our conversation. I think collaboration is going to be very meaningful and very important in this new time. And Mika, if you don't have a question for viewers or for the museum, then we'll end it right now. Thanking you very much.
Thank you, Silvia. Take care and stay safe. And yeah.
Thank you. Stay healthy. And thank you to Cultured Magazine for joining us as a sponsor of this event.
Thank you.
Everyone.
Bye-bye.